Hello and welcome to the latest episode of Doorstep History.
The show that brings to light all of the local history that's right on your doorstep. A new guide to an historic area of Birmingham has been published. Digbeth is the brainchild of Andy Munro and Anna Gibson. Norma met Andy for a stroll around Digbeth.
So this is Andy. Andy's mainly been responsible for researching the guide, so you found it interesting?
It's been an absolute fascinating exercise. I'm a Brummie born and bred, but there's so much I didn't know about Digbeth, and it really is a fascinating area historically and to the present day with all its creative businesses, so it's been a great exercise.
Okay, so can we go and have a look around then, a tour?
Let's go.
First stop is a pub.
We've got some deeds that go back to at least 1775, and everything's documented since then in all this paperwork. It was taken over by Ansell's in 1901, and before that it was just called a beer house, and it would have been just the two rooms at this end of the pub that were the pub at that time. So the other, what is now the big room, would have been added perhaps in the 20s or 30s. There were no roads at the time, so it says on the road that is going to be Alcester Street, on the road that's going to be Warwick Street, on the road that's going to be Bradford Street. And it actually gives the measurements that the road was going to be. And this area has got artesian wells, so the Old Crown would have had one. Ansell's Brewery had its own water, had its own well, and so did HB Sauce. Anyway, she was sweeping. They'd just put a piece of wood over the top of it, and she said she'd been standing on it and it was fine. But this child came in and it just gave way and he fell in, and they couldn't get him out, so he drowned.
Oh my goodness. Did they have the well to make the beer as well? Was it anything to do with the beer making?
They probably did at the time, but when Ansell's took it over, obviously that wasn't the case.
No,
it was no longer a beer house. It became part of Ansell's estate of pubs.
Digbeth is really well known for its viaducts, and behind me you can see one viaduct which is in use, which is the Snow Hill line to Paddington, and nearest to me is a disused railway line which is over 160 years old. It was originally going to link London Paddington with Birmingham New Street. It was a Great Western Railway line, but unfortunately it was never finished, and now it's just disused. There have been plans to turn it into a sky park and all sorts of things. Nothing's happened to it yet, but hopefully it will, because it would be a great facility. We're here at Faithful Studios, which is part of the Custard Factory complex. This was refurbished about 6 years ago. It used to be a Unitarian chapel and Sunday school, lovingly restored, and now home to over 40 creative businesses and a very popular venue for weddings. So great refurbishment.
River Ray and the canal were really important to early Digbeth, and I wonder what kind of heritage there is still on the canal side.
Well, underneath the canal here is the River Ray. It's a wonderful scenic spot actually, almost like an area of outstanding natural beauty. I'd go that far. In the winter, of course, this river floods, becomes a bit of a raging torrent. And there have been plans actually to raise the River Ray because it could be a real asset to the area. At the moment, the River Ray is a good natural marker between the areas of Digbeth and Derrit End, which has been an historic division over the years. Behind me is the banana warehouse, and ships used to, or canal boats used to come up the Grand Union Canal, packed full of bananas. And they were stored here, and it was a warehouse owned by Geest, which was a household name certainly years ago in the world of bananas. Behind me is the Bond Warehouse, another fantastic industrial building converted for managed workspace. Lots of events are held there as well. The building, as it's often the name, used to be a bonded warehouse where lots of valuable goods were stored, whisky and the like. So a very famous building as part of Birmingham's industrial heritage. As a bonded warehouse, the products would have an excise duty on them, and that's why they'd have to be stored there. Behind me is the headquarters, the original Thai Food Tea Company. A lot of people don't know, but it was founded by a Brummie in, I think, 1903. and the tea used to be brought up by canal to this the back of this building. Unfortunately now Typhoo Tea have moved on up to Merseyside, but it still remains very much a Brummie thing really, as an iconic name. We're here in the internationally recognised Custard Factory, home of Alfie Bird, I believe, in his time.
Yes, Andy, it's a strange story with custard. At the time, this building and these premises were all owned by Alfred Birds. They were producing gallons and gallons and gallons of custard. Infamous brand throughout the world. Left here in the 50s. We bought the building in the late 90s. And we're in a position now where instead of 1,000 people being employed making custards, there's about 2,000 people employed mainly within the creative industries based here. Our focus is on workspace, so the majority of our spaces are small to medium-sized companies. What we want in the future is a working community of thousands of young businesses. It's mainly at the moment in digital media. 12 years ago, the building behind us, we put in super fast broadband connections, university quality, and gave it away with the studios. We're trying to get the mix right, and we're trying to get the idea that you can do something slightly different down here. And it's beginning to happen again. So it feels right. Birmingham feels right. Birmingham feels as if it's got its message out there. So bring on the next 5-10 years, because I do really think more companies allows more activity, allows more interaction, and business makes business. And I think Digbeth has been, historically linked with the River Ray. Its founding fathers based here, the oldest pub based here. There's a sense that Birmingham's identity is based in Digbeth.
Absolutely.
And I really believe that what we're doing is not contrary to that, but actually enhances that. So I'm looking forward to the next 10 years.
So the future's bright, the future's yellow in custard terms. Yeah.
Absolutely, Andy. Thank you.
Right, we're here at the Old Crown, which is Birmingham's oldest secular building. And we've got a Kieran here who's the landlord. Kieran, tell me a little bit about the history of the place.
Okay, so the building dates back to 1368. I think that's the actual date that there was an inn started here, but the actual building that we see behind us was built in the 1450s, so still quite old. Yeah. It's been everything from a butcher's to an off licence to a manor house to everything in between in its time here. So it's had a lot of uses, but today it's
And all the half timbered facade on the front, does that date back from the 15th century as well?
The building was refurbed in the early 90s, so they kept as much as they could. So
right,
and they did such a good job that you can't really tell the difference. But for someone with a keen eye, you'd be able to see which is the original and which part was the refurbished. But they did try and keep as much as possible.
Now this area is interesting because it was the Italian Quarter, and of course we always associate Digbeth with the Irish and the Irish Quarter. We'll be talking about that in a future programme. Now before we go, let's just have a quick word with Anna, who co-wrote the guide.
Well, it's the guide is an informative publication that will introduce visitors and the people that live in Birmingham and surrounding areas to this wonderfully creative area that has a rich heritage that they can all be proud of. Well, the aim is to encourage footfall into this area. That I think people will be extremely surprised at what there is here. It's so vibrant, and interesting, a real hidden gem of the city of Birmingham.
We'll be back after the break to find out about more history on your doorstep.